Hi, everybody. It's the Atheism UK podcast. Welcome. And just so I remember this, subscribe. Because I keep on forgetting.
Yeah. Like, press the button, do all the subscribey things.
Yeah, and also comment. Yes. We sort of thrive on comments and questions and things like that. And that's what we're doing this for.
And set the notifications so that next time we're on, you go ping.
Absolutely.
The big expensive machine that goes ping.
That we're pretty crap at.
Yep, and we'll even respond as well if you ask us questions.
Yes, we will respond. So has everybody got their cups of tea?
Yeah, cups of tea here.
Tea the UK atheists.
Oh yeah, and this time I have, like I said in a previous podcast, I brought the Jammy Dodgers.
They're upside down.
There we go. Jammy Dodgers.
Market properly. Jammy Dodgers.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so
other biscuits are available.
Other biscuits. Yeah. Yes.
Are they sponsoring us now?
I wish they were. well, actually, given actually my current, maybe not a good idea.
Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, listen.
But if anybody does want to sponsor us, that would be.
Yeah. Carlsberg, particularly.
Shut up. trying to get the intro done. It always happens. This. What we're talking about today is basically argument from design, the teleological argument. Just there's loads of different apologetic arguments that we sort of have to combat all the time. We're going to go through a few of them, and we've done the cosmological argument. We did that last time. This time we're going to look at the argument from design, or the teleological argument. And does anybody want to sort of kick this one off?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I hate the word teleological because it's again one of those incredibly long words that I can barely cope with knowing what it actually means. But teleological basically means something that is designed for a purpose. So the teleological argument is that the world, the universe, a tree, the human body, the bacterial flagellum motor is designed for a purpose. Because it has been designed by a purpose, it needs to have had a purposeful designer. And that designer is, guess who? This God thing, which is something that is an argument that is one that is often thrown at us and has been debunked again for at least 150 years. But we also get, in a really, really irritating form, I think at least two of us on this call have had this actually told to us by people that approached us literally in the street, who said, "Look at the trees. Look at the trees. The tree is designed to look beautiful. It's designed to look pleasing to our eyes. Therefore, it had to have been a god that designed it to do that and look beautiful."
Look at this dead tree.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, so the concept here is, look how amazing things are all around us. Things such as the human eye, for instance. Look how perfectly it's designed.
Says the man wearing glasses.
But this is the point. Look how perfectly designed, and I'm wearing glasses. So it's not that perfectly designed. But people say they can't believe how something, so complex as, say, the eye, that's so perfectly suited to its task, occurred naturally. They just can't understand how it can be a natural occurrence, like via evolution or natural selection.
Until you actually, like all things, start studying nature.
Yeah.
And you start finding that there are actually lots of intermediate stages of eye development that already exist in nature.
Yeah.
And still exist. All those stages still exist in animals right now. But this is the point of the
eye
argument.
is one of those classic ad nauseum creationist arguments.
Yeah.
As atheists, we're sick to the back teeth of hearing that and describing that, why that isn't the case to creationists. But
and the fact that they always bring out that one paragraph in The Origin of Species about the eye, and conveniently forget about the 2 paragraphs that follow it immediately afterwards that actually explain the first paragraph and why that first paragraph is actually wrong.
You're not saying that religious people are cherry picking phrases, are you? I can't believe they're actually cherry picking things.
I'm stunned by the suggestion. Are you saying that religious people are being dishonest?
Wouldn't say that. No, look, I mean, but the whole point of this, that they say that it looks as if it's been designed, and it means there must have been a designer. It must have been designed by a creator, and that creator obviously being God. And again, it's an argument from ignorance. And when I say ignorance, I'm not using ignorance in the massively detrimental term. You're ignorant. But ignorance is something which we all have. We're all ignorant about lots of things.
Yeah, it's a lack of knowledge about a certain area.
So that's the way I'm using that phrase. But it's an argument from ignorance. It means that they don't understand exactly what is. They don't understand this thing about evolution. They don't really believe that evolution exists. I mean, a lot of, especially young Earth creationists, are of the impression. And they have a genuine impression. I mean, they really truly believe this because they have to, because otherwise the Bible means nothing, which is the point of why they have to believe it. But they really truly believe.
But the Bible does mean nothing. I just thought that's a rather inconvenient fact.
Yeah, it's true. But that God had to have done it this way, and this is one of the reasons why they disregard evidence of archaeological evidence or paleontology and all those sort of things. Because if that is true, then the Bible isn't, and that can't be the case. And this is what I can understand people wondering. I mean, I all through my life I've climbed mountains and stood at the top of mountains at night. I do really stupidly dangerous things because I'm just a stupid rocker. But I've stood on the top of mountains with my mates at night, and looked at the stars, and it's absolutely awe-inspiring. So you can understand. People who had no background in science, and I'm talking about thousands of years ago, who, shepherds sitting on a hilltop in Galilee, for instance, looking up at the stars and going, "This must have been created by something," as opposed to we know basically what this whole thing is now. We know what the universe is. We know what stars are. We know what galaxies are, and things like that. But for people to sort of at that point just stare up at the sky or look at things around them, and they just go, it can't have just happened. So you can understand where that came from, that whole concept comes from. But
that's the problem with creationists. When you speak to them, they regurgitate exactly the same thing again and again and again, to the point that they don't actually understand that we know exactly what they're going to say next. We can even finish their sentences for them. But if you argue with an atheist, you never know what they're going to come up with.
That's true.
That's why they don't do it.
But can you understand how it would come about in the beginning? When you look at things and you just think, this is so incredible. The way the world is, everything is. Look at the trees. I mean, this has got to be created by something. Surely you can understand the way ancient civilizations would have thought about these things, the stars and the way the planets moved and all those sort of things. Because
it may be the worst explanation, but it was the first explanation, and because it was the first explanation, it stuck.
Yeah. Well, in their world, everything seemed to have somebody who created it. They made their own houses, they made their own weapons, they made their own bread. There always seemed to be an agent at the background doing stuff to make things. So it's understandable why they came up with that answer. But let's take a look at the eye. It's supposed to be intelligently designed, is it? Well, if that's true, why does it suffer from cataract, glaucoma, astigmatism, myopia, hypermetropia, presbyopia, macular degeneration, etc., etc.? How intelligently designed is it?
Why are the photosensitive receptors in the retina at the back of the cell, so that light has to pass through blood vessels, other gubbins before it gets to the light sensitive bits?
Yes.
Why is the signal upside down?
Yes, yes.
Um,
And why is the retina interrupted by a big nerve that actually gives us a spot where we can't detect light, a blind spot? And why is the octopus eye much better designed? Because it doesn't have those defects.
well, God likes octopi, obviously.
Yes.
Um,
So what we have noticed here is this is an example of unintelligent design, especially the retina being back to front. You know, who would design a digital camera where the chip was the wrong way round, with all the light detectors behind the circuit board? That's just stupid. So, and there's lots of other examples of unintelligent design. The famous one, of course, is the giraffe's what's it called?
laryngeal nerve.
Yeah. It's the recurrent laryngeal nerve, because what it does is goes all the way down the giraffe's neck, which is 6 foot, and then all the way back up again, having looped round the arteries that come out of the heart. Now that's just stupid. And the reason that it's come to be like that is because a giraffe, like us, evolved from fish. And fish don't have necks. So the nerve that went from the fish's equivalent of a larynx, you know, the throat of the fish, to its brain, just happened to bypass the heart because they're close together. But then, because evolution inserted a neck into that design, we've got this ridiculous journey for the nerve to go. And of course, it delays the signal. Extra length.
I think, as I recall, the laryngeal nerve in the giraffe is about 7 meters long, because it has to come from the brain round the heart all the way back. I mean, who would design anything like that?
Well, this is the thing, you see, because in the real world, designers don't have to start with something that isn't appropriate. I mean, who would try to design an aircraft by starting with a military tank? Nobody would be that stupid. But this is
intelligent designers try to keep things as simple as possible.
And they start with a blank sheet of paper so that they can design anything they want. But what evolution does is precisely that. Evolution does start with a tank and turns it into an aircraft.
Yeah.
Because it's always modifying the pre-existing.
Yeah. Yes.
And it takes a little while, doesn't it?
Yes.
One of the things that I thought was quite interesting in when I was reading about intelligent design, and I've read quite a lot about it, is there was a guy. There was a court case. I think it was Kitzmiller and some school in America.
Dover School District.
Dover. That's it. Dover area school.
Kitzmiller versus Dover.
Yeah.
2005.
The guy there that was on the school side about putting creationism into school, and a guy called Michael Behe, I think he was.
Yes.
Who was I think he was a biology professor or something, or biochemistry professor or something like that.
Yeah,
so he was the one that sort of coined that irreducible complexity argument. And I think, to be honest, I think that is probably, for me, one of the most convincing of the arguments when you start reading it about irreducible complexity. It's the most interesting of them, because just a basic design argument is preposterous. We know evolution, we know that evolution is a fact. It's been and the paleontology.
It's been observed to happen.
Yeah, but it's observed. We know it's a fact, and it's a bit annoying when people sort of go, no, not listening to that. But the irreducible complexity argument, I thought was just a just much more convincing way of putting that sort of design argument. It still falls to bits. I mean,
it's convincing on its face. It's when you actually start digging, all of these arguments. The moment you start digging, the moment you start realizing, oh, actually. And we going back to the eye question, when we talk about the fact that the irreducible complexity people will say, the eye is perfect, it could not have come into existence. Well, firstly, no, it didn't just come into existence, but they said, well, if part of it didn't work,
that's the point of irreducible complexity.
if part of it didn't work,
Yeah.
the whole thing wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But we know, again, that isn't actually true.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, again,
I mean, the fact of it is that, but it's. I just thought when I read about irreducible complexity, I just thought that was it was about the best shot that they had. I mean, I don't think it get better in a design argument. I don't think they can actually get a better argument from as something like irreducible complexity.
Okay, I've got a couple
really
of things
good
to
argument. Forced to bits when you look at it, but I thought it was a really, really good one.
I got a couple of things to say on this, because something which is claimed to be irreducibly complex is only irreducibly complex until you reduce it. As soon as you find out or come up with a model of how it could have evolved genuinely and credibly, then it ceases to be irreducible.
Well, this is the actual thing that they did within that courtroom. They pulled that to bits by that method, and I think that was the. But as I say, I just think it was a good idea. You know, it's one of the best shots that they've had at argument from design.
And in fact, actually, to go back to one of the things that you said earlier, in that courtroom when Behe was on the stand, he was asked about the claims he made about the immune system, and he said, the immune system is irreducibly complex. Nobody has conclusively demonstrated how the immune system evolved. At which point, the lawyer got out several very, very large textbooks, dumped them on the witness box, and said, "Here are a couple of dozen textbooks on the subject, and a list of." Another few dozen academic journal articles on the subject, and all he could say was, "Oh, that's just not good enough." In other words, he just said, "La la 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 la." It doesn't matter how much you produce in front of me; it's my idea. It's never going to, the criticisms are never going to be good enough. Which actually just goes to show how much of a poor scientist he actually is, because when you are presented that amount of evidence, a good scientist, and let's face it, human nature does sometimes try and kick in here. But you should be accepting that evidence.
Well, I've repurposed Wi-Fi. We all know what Wi-Fi is. I call it willful ignorance, faulty intellect. When you're talking about things like that, that's mine, but you can use it if you want.
Your acronym, yes, it makes sense.
I remember that. We had.
So
that was years ago.
It was, wasn't it?
The other thing that's wrong with irreducible complexity is that it's not evidence for anything.
No.
It is here's a mystery. Oh, nobody can solve it. Must be my God done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you give something a posh name, people will go, "Oh, that sounds really so."
It's got to be right.
Yeah, that's
brilliant.
brilliant.
Or the teleological argument.
Yeah. Because it also goes back to things like William Paley's watchmaker thing as well. I mean, it's another thing. I mean, these are all things that if anybody's interested is to go and have a look at some of this stuff, some of these arguments, because every single one of them sort of falls to bits if you actually put, just a little bit of thought behind it. And what tends to happen with a lot of these things is that you talked about sort of logical fallacies and things like that. Now, when I was young, I had no clue what a logical fallacy was. I had no clue what it actually meant, but I think it's actually quite a good thing to try and get your head around and learn some of this stuff, because it does help you with your critical thinking, because you start seeing a lot more where those fallacies lie when people say things. You can sort of pinpoint them quite quickly, and then you can point out that it is a logical fallacy, and the reason why it's a logical fallacy is because of this. It does help a lot.
There's a very good poster on the main logical fallacies, which you could include in the comments underneath.
Yeah, we can do that as well.
But
if you really want a good presentation regarding the Kitzmiller case, Eugenie Scott did a very good presentation at the Crystal City AAI conference back in, I think it was either 2007 or 2006. That was a really, really good talk. It is available online. We'll see if we can find the link and we'll post that as well. really well worth a watch.
Yeah. The thing about William Paley's watch, though, and similar claims, is that they, talking about fallacies, are arguments from incredulity.
Yeah.
Oh,
What they say is, I don't understand it, therefore what I claim must be true.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, when I was, a few years ago, I was sat on a park bench in Fitzroy Square in central London, and this old couple came up to me who were obviously doing some street preaching and, tried to do their shtick on me. The fact that I was actually waiting for a meeting when we were in the foundation stages of creating Atheism UK is irrelevant. But, everything that they threw at me, I was able to throw them back. And in exasperation at the end, the guy realized that they weren't going to get anywhere with me and was trying to encourage his wife away from me. And she turned to the square and again said, well, look at the trees. How else could they have come about except by a god? At which point I spoke about how cell division works and how trees reproduce and how they take nutrients from the soil and are able to build and grow as a result of that, and no God required. And I think she went off in a bit of a huff after that.
Did you ask her whether it was her God who was burning down the trees in British Columbia and parts of Turkey at the moment?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, this was a few years ago, so it was a bit, again, predates that a bit. But
Rich, that's a good point you just come up with, and I'll just digress ever so slightly on that. You've touched on a psychological aspect there. It's great to know all these things in your head, but I would urge any active atheists like ourselves who want to argue these things, actually do it. Don't just sit there and think of it in your head. You learn and you hone your skills by actually telling it to people. I don't mean, go out and evangelize. I'm saying actually,
de-evangelize.
Speak these things to people, and it'll really improve your skills. But when you said you were sitting on a park bench and this old couple came up to you, I thought you said they were giving you money.
Well, I wouldn't have turned it down because I was about to go into a London pub.
Yeah, but I had a similar experience to yourself, where very quickly I've lived where I live for nearly 40 years, and I used, before the pandemic and the lockdown, I used to get at least 2 Jehovah's Witnesses visits every week from different Jehovah's Witnesses, always 2 at the door. So if you times that by the number of weeks that are in nearly 40 years, you can see why I don't answer my door anymore when I see two people standing there. If you haven't got
shout through the letterbox.
If you haven't got a DPD uniform on or a Royal Mail, I'm not answering the door. But anyway, one day, two ladies there, and the first thing they wind me up with is, how are you today? Well, first thing I want to know is, who are you and what do you want? And then, do you know Jehovah? And I always avoid going down the route of, do you know who I am? Because obviously they don't. Because
they don't come to my door anymore. They don't come to my door anymore. I think I'm on their do not call list.
Yeah, I think they've stopped that for the pandemic. They're just writing letters to people now. And we got down this, argument of God created everything. And I tried to go down the evolution route, and I said to myself in my head, I shouldn't be doing this because I'm just wasting my time. And they pointed to this big lilac bush in my garden and said, who do you think created that? It's Jehovah. And which point I said, thank you very much, and closed the door because I just couldn't stand it anymore. Had to go sit down
there's a category error in that question in the first place, because they're asking who created it.
Yes.
Why does it have to be a who?
Yes.
And by asking the wrong question and making that category error, No wonder they're going to get the wrong answer.
Yes.
Yeah, but they speak
That
from a
seems pretty
script.
desperate, though, doesn't it? It all seems very, very desperate. You know,
Well,
who created that tree?
Yeah, as Mark says, it's a script. You know, and there are so many different scripts out there for different things. I know that in a future podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Alpha course, which I don't want to go into a lot of detail because that would be spoilers for a future podcast. But but for those who don't know it, the Alpha course is an attempt to try and evangelize by a form of Pentecostal Christian, but disguised as mainstream Christianity. And
That's going to be a good one. It's going
to be a good one. There is a full script, and they've even scripted responses to our objections.
Yes, they have.
But those scripted responses are actually mostly deflections and not actually addressing the objections that we raise. But that's a subject for another time. So there's a little bit of a teaser.
Can't wait.
Do you know, I think one of the most interesting comments on this concept of the argument from design has got to be Douglas Adams. You know the puddle story.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that is Douglas Adams is a fantastic writer. I mean, I love Hitchhiker's Guide and all those sort of things. But that little story about the puddle, if you haven't read it, any of you, that has got to be something which you've got to read, because in a small paragraph, he basically just destroys this concept of this world was designed for us. So if you haven't read it, I think what I might do is I might put a link into it, or put just put that little story in there. But it's just a fantastic little story about a puddle that evaporates, and wonders, he thinks his world's this hole is completely for him. It fits him so
it's perfect for him. Yeah.
So you've got to read that one from Douglas Adams, because I think it actually sums up everything about the stupidity of this concept of an argument from design, or an argument for God from design.
And also, if you've ever read the posthumously published compendium of some of his writings called The Salmon of Doubt, going back to one of John's points about all we've known by some of our more early ancestors who designed everything themselves, when it came to the big question, they then actually said, well, who designed the mountains and who designed the sunrise and the sunset? Douglas actually expounds on that really eloquently and really beautifully. I really miss Douglas. He was an absolutely fantastic writer.
Yeah, fantastic writer. Anyway, listen, guys, we've sort of got to the end of our sort of stint for this podcast. It's been
so get out there and look at the trees. Get out there and look at the trees. I'm going to go and
have a look at the trees right now, mate. I'm going to do that right now.
I'm going to hug one. one.
Oh, I did that at another event in Walthamstow many years ago, but that's again another story for another time.
Well, listen, we're gonna shoot off now. So subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. So subscribe to the channel. We need your subscription. Need comments, anything you want to talk about, then put them below the video, then that'd be fantastic. So listen, until next time, we'll see you later.
See you soon.
Bye.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and don't forget to click that like button. Also, make a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.